So this Shabbos is Chodesh. Today is first day of Rosh Chodesh, and tomorrow is the second day of Rosh Chodesh. So we will discuss some halachos of Nusach Atfila Shabbos Rosh Chodesh. The Gemara Beitz Daf Yud Zayin. There is a machlokes. Shalom Aleichem. So in Beitz Daf Yud Zayin we find the machlokes in the Gemara. What is the nusach of Tfilas HaMusaf when Shabbos falls on Rosh Chodesh? Halacha Lamai says we all know Tfilas HaMusaf is fundamentally Tfilah of Rosh Chodesh, Maskirin Shal Shabbos, and the same Shabbos in Yom Tov, or Shabbos Chol HaMoed. Musaf is Shorosh HaGolem, and we also mention Me'ein HaMa'ura, we also mention Shabbos. The Yochah has an interesting question. And let's read source number 2. Shema'olam Tomati, it was always a pele b'yainai, I didn't understand. Al nusach shalonu shebesof atu yitzarto, she'achar lemechilas oven oimrim, ki v'yamchi yisor b'charto makol ha'umois, v'rosh chodoshim lehem nosato, lamo ein oimrim kadshenu b'mitzasecho v'sencholkenu v'sorosecho, v'hanchi leinu, Harei kol Yom Tov shechal b'Shabbos, v'Rosh Hashanah v'Yom Kippurim shechol b'Shabbos oimrim b'soif ha'brochem tzuas nusach zeh, shezeh toirev kedushas ha'Shabbos. Lama lo yomru zeh b'Rosh Chodesh shechal b'Shabbos. U'benusach Sfarad yeshnoi be'emes zeh hanusach. Nusach Sfaradi means the Sfaradim, also Chabad, which is Nusach Ha'ari. But in all the other Sidurim, we did not find Kadshenu b'mitzasecho in Shabbos Rosh Chodesh. Lani es daiti, b'nusach Ashkenaz chaser zeh matfus, v'ani noeg liyomro, v'ein shum tam shelo Elohim hazeh, v'lo matzosi misha heyer b'zeh. There's no reason we shouldn't say Kadshenu b'mitzasecho. And I guess, says the Yochah, just a mistake. For some reason, in the Safari Safurim, it isn't written. Now, one of the fundamental principles my Talmidim hear from Yalat, if it's not written in any Ashkenazi Suda, and we do not find anybody making this argument till the Yoruch HaShulchan, we should assume, to use the Lashon of Chazal, Hanach lebnei Yisrael, leave them alone. Im lo neviim hem, if it's not in the Siddur, obviously it's not supposed to be in the Siddur. And we do not say it's a mistake. If it would be a mistake of a Buchazet, it would be corrected in the past 600 or 700 years. And if it wasn't, obviously it doesn't need to be. However, in the Rambam we do find it. And Rambam say that at Tfilis, at the end of Sefer Ahava, we find the nusach of all the tefillas in Rambam. Brochem tzos memusaf Rosh Chodesh shechal yes b'Shabbos. And then Rambam writes what the nusach is. Atu yetzartu alomcha mikedem kalisa malachtechu b'yom shvi b'chartu b'olam kol omes. And we're all familiar. We're going to say this tomorrow. The last line. Let's have a look. Yirotzim al fonechu Hashem Elokeinu v'kev v'seinu. Tzenu b'mnichasenu, kadsheni b'mitzasecho, ad v'yunuchu b'om kol Yisrael avishmecho, mekadesh Yisrael v'rosh Shabbos v'Yisrael v'rosh Chodoshim. The Rambam does have kadsheni b'mitzasecho. And that is why the Sfaradim do say, but the Ashkenazim don't say. Yochah says, I think one should say, and I do say, even though it's not in the Siddur. So obviously he davened the Baal Peh, or maybe he had a Chabad Siddur, which is somewhat unlikely. And in my opinion, I don't like to argue with the Yochah, whom I greatly admire, but I'm just miyash of all the others. I think it's a mistake. This entire argument is a total mistake, because Shabbos teaches us Ayin Toivo. And even though Shabbos is more important than any other day of the year, Kedushas Shabbos is higher than Kedushas Yom Kippurim. That would be a chiddush to many people. Yom Kippur is Shabbos Shabbosayin, but Shabbos has more Kedusha than Yom Kippurim. Shabbos definitely has more Kedusha than Yom Tov. It has 1,000 times more Kedusha than Rosh Chodesh. But Shabbos always steps aside when a guest comes for Shabbos. Shabbos always steps aside. And in the Musaf, Shabbos Yom Tov, we say the Nusach of Sholosh Regalim, and we mention Shabbos as well. Shabbos Rosh Hashanah, needless to say, that the Tful is Rosh Hashanah, and we mention Shabbos. And the same as Shabbos Rosh Chodesh. The fundamental Nusach of Musaf is the Nusach of Rosh Chodesh. We mention Shabbos as well. And at Rosh Chodesh we don't have Katshenu b'mitzvah because there is no Kedushas Yom Tov on Rosh Chodesh. So why would there be Katshenu b'mitzvah because of Shabbos? Shabbos steps aside. And just like Shabbos and Yom Tov, Shabbos Chol HaMoed. Chol HaMoed doesn't come close to the Kedusha of Shabbos, but Shabbos Chol HaMoed, we say the Nusach of Sholosh Regalim. Shabbos Rosh Chodesh, the fundamental Nusach is not the Nusach of Shabbos, it's the Nusach of Rosh Chodesh. So I don't understand what the hiyoംהשחור is talking about. He says, every Shabbos we say Katshenu Mitzvah, why wouldn't we say it today? Because Rosh Chodesh we don't say the Tfilas of Shabbos, it's the Tfilas of Chodesh. And at Tfilas of Chodesh there is no Katshenu Mitzvah. So I don't think this comment is right at all. Somebody told me many years ago, he davened in Shara Chesed with Reb Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, and it was Shabbos Chodesh Reb Shlomo Zalman had Yotzat, and he said Katshenu b'mitzvah. And I said, this cannot be. Cannot be. Because I knew Reb Shlomo Zalman. Lo mat'im lo. It doesn't fit in with his personality. He was not a revolutionary. He was a gewaldige Chadchen in Halacha, but he was the greatest Onav in the world. Lo mat'im lo. I don't believe Reb Shlomo Zalman would say Katshenu b'mitzvah when nobody says it. And it doesn't appear in any Ashkenazi Seder. In Nusach Ashkenaz it doesn't appear. Can't be. But he said, I saw. What should I say? Many years later, when Sforim came out, Reb Shlomo Zalman's Psukim, I don't recall whether it's Halicha Shloima or Shulchan Shloima, but in one of these two Sforim, I saw Gufe de Uvda Heicha Have. I saw what the story was. And yes, it's true, Reb Shlomo Zalman did say Katshenu Mitzvah, V'kama ze matim le Reb Shlomo Zalman. And it's very fitting for Reb Shlomo Zalman. Why is that? So the story is told. Before Reb Shlomo Zalman came to Shara Chesed and he davened in that shul there was an elder Talmid Chacham, his name was Reb Shimon Pepperman. And he made a meaning in this shul to say Katshenu b'mitzvah. We don't know where he got this meaning, maybe from the hiyoംהשחור, maybe his Rebbe taught him. I never heard about Reb Shimon Pepperman, but he was there before Reb Shlomo Zalman, and that was the meaning of the shul. So Reb Shlomo Zalman davened for the Yom. He's not going to hurt that person, and he's not going to go against the minhag HaMokam. If that's what they say, then we'll say it. It's not a bracha levatollah. It's not a bracha levatollah. After all, it's the Nusach of Tfilas Shabbos. After that, Reb Shimon Pepperman passed away. Reb Shlomo Zalman said, now we're going back to minhag Ashkenaz, and we will no longer say Shabbos Chodesh Katshenu b'mitzvah. And if that's the story, it's beautiful, yes, and it fits in very well with Reb Shlomo Zalman's personality. Mishum kvoido shelo yisei zoken. Didn't want to hurt him and offend him. He was older than Reb Shlomo Zalman. He was there before him. He was a Talmid Chacham. And if that is the minhag of this shul, that's what I'm going to do. But after he passed away, Reb Shlomo Zalman said, now we're going back to Nusach Ashkenaz. So it's the same story, Rabbi Say, but you need to know the context of a story. So when I heard the story, I said, impossible, no way. When I saw actually what the story was, I said, it's not only possible, but yeah, it's very fitting for Reb Shlomo Zalman's mahalach and his personality. Why does Shabbos step aside for Yom Tov, for Chol HaMoed, for Rosh Chodesh? Why? So obviously we have so much to learn from Shabbos stepping aside for the guest. But the Shiltei Geborim has two different explanations. Yes, shoyanim. Lama menichem b'Shabbos brocha emtzuas shel Shabbos v'oimrim shel Yom Tov shi'atu b'chartonu v'koilelem bo shel Shabbos v'chein b'musaf Shabbos Rosh Chodesh menichem tikanto v'oimrim atu yotzato. Why? Hatam. Mishum de brocha shel Shabbos she'ematu kadashto yismach Moshe atu echad lo yipol behem yafeh עירוב של שבס ויום טוב וראש חודש, כמו שנוכל לומר, בעתו בחתונו ויעתו יצרתו. ולכן מניחים לקודם של שבס, ביעתו בחתונו ויעתו יצרתו. או מזכירים לקודם של שבס, מזכירים של שבס תחילה. Not very convincing. I don't know. He says, mitzad the nusach, it's easier to combine Shabbos in the nusach of Rosh Chodesh and Yom Tov than to stick in Yom Tov in the nusach of Shabbos. Why? I mean, you could formulate things in 1,000 ways. Why? I don't understand what he's saying. He says, Einoi me'arev yofa, it's hard to put in Yom Tov in the Shabbos Tefillah. In Tikanto, it's easier to put Shabbos in Yom Tov Tefillah. I don't know why. I mean, we could always find a beautiful formula if we have the liberty to be Menaseach Tefillas. I don't get this tam. I think the other one makes more sense. V'yesh oimrem, tam acha. Lama menichin shel Shabbos v'omrin shel Yom Tov, kedei lefasim shu Yom Tov. Maske shel Shabbos tchila lefi shehi tidiro. And he brings this from Atzos HaChaim. You cannot forget Shabbos. There's no chashash people will forget Shabbos. You can't forget Shabbos. Shabbos is every 7th day. 6,000 years that we've been observing Shabbos. Masa Bereishis, HaKadosh Baruch Hu Kiddush et Shabbos. We didn't have the halachas of Shabbos, but Shabbos is the day since the very first Shabbos of creation. You can't forget Shabbos, but you could forget Yom Tov when it's Chana Shabbos. You could forget Rosh Chodesh, and that is why the basic nusach is Yom Tov, Chol HaMoed, Rosh Chodesh, and we just put in Shabbos. But this is a fact, and the fact is the fundamental nusach of Tefillah in Musaf is not the Shabbos Dika Musaf. It's the Yom Tov Dika Musaf, it's a Rosh Chodesh Musaf. And if it's Rosh Chodesh, why would we say Kachenu b'mitzvah secho? It's not in Tefillah Rosh Chodesh. It's in Tefillah Shabbos and in Tefillah Yom Tov, but not in Tefillah Rosh Chodesh. However, and this was my big surprise, Machzor Vitri. So let me tell you who is Machzor Vitri. Machzor Vitri is basically Rashi and Rabbi of Rashi. And Machzor Vitri is the very first siddur we have, going all the way back, even before the Rambam. And Machzor Vitri is Ashkenaz. Rashi was an Ashkenazi. And in Machzor Vitri, we do find Kachenu b'mitzvah secho, and that's the surprise. So the hiouംhשחור has a point. So I came out against the היוםהשחור 10 minutes ago. I think he would be very gratified to be aware of this Machzor Vitri. Atu yetzarto olam chumikedem kelisa malachtacho b'yom shvi b'charto b'olam kol umis. And we have the lengthy nusach of Tfilas, Shabbos Rosh Chodesh. Last line. Elokeinu v'elokei v'seinu rotzem nichoseinu ad b'yahav Shabbos Kodshecho. This is the nusach of Kachenu b'mitzvah secho v'secho kelu b'sor secho. Machzor Vitri is Ashkenaz. So really is a shtickle pela. If it's in Machzor Vitri, it was the most important source of nusach Ashkenaz, why don't we have it in our Sidurim? So, the hiouംhשחור has a point. He wasn't aware of this Machzor Vitri. So should we say it or should we not say it? We should not say it. It's in Machzor Vitri. The hiouംhשחור argues we should. It's not in Mugan Avraham. It's not in any of the Poskim, and it's not in the Ashkenazi Sidurim. What's not in the Siddur, we don't say. So I think, no, we should not start saying it because it's not in the Siddur. And it's not in any major Ashkenazi Posik. From the Machzor Vitri till the hiouംhשחור. That's about 800 years, approximately. And it's nowhere after the hiouംhשחור. Even though some present-day Gedolim write, we should do like the hiouംhשחור. And that is what Reb Shimon Pepperman did. I don't know who he asked, but that was the fact. And Reb Shimon Zalman didn't want to offend him, and therefore he said, Kachenu b'mitzvah secho. but I don't think we should change our nusach. Sugya number 2 is source number 7, and that is the Igris Moshe. What happens if a person davens and Musaf Shabbos is Chodesh, he forgot it's Chodesh. And this is very common, it happens all the time. Because on the top of the page you have Musaf Shabbos, on the bottom of the page you have Rosh Chodesh, and people sometimes get confused, and people sometimes just forget. So we daven the normal Musaf of Shabbos, and then when the Shliach Tzibah davens, he says, "Oy, I forgot to say Atu Yitzarto." The Moshe Paskins, you already said Musaf Shel Shabbos. No point in saying it again. You should now say Musaf Shel Rosh Chodesh. Musaf Shel Rosh Chodesh, you say in the middle of the week. And you shouldn't say Musaf Shel Shabbos Rosh Chodesh. You don't say Atu Yitzarto. Why? You already said. And Reb Moshe tells a story. I hope we have it in our section. I'm not sure. Yes, here it is. V'chein hoiresi b'lyuban. Third line. Kishachatvu anoshim v'hoishivum bebeit ha'asurim k'dei sheyitn kesef shel zohar v'lamedina k'fi asach she'omdu sheyesh loi. V'hoya oz Shabbos v'Rosh Chodesh Shvat v'lo yenichu Elohei v'sidor v'lo yaboker b'tfilas Musaf shel Shabbos v'Rosh Chodesh. So people were snatched off the street and thrown into jail. It was Erev Shabbos Rosh Chodesh. Why did they do that? They wanted money. It's not like the hostages that we have for more than a year in Gaza, Hashem Yerachim. It's not about money. It's about Dina Nefoshes, and so many of them were killed. Hashem Yinkum Domam. So Ramoshes tells a story. I was a young Rav in Russia, and Erev Shabbos, people were grabbed and thrown into jail, and the Russians didn't even let them take a siddur. You know, in many old Svarim that were printed 100 years ago, the Mechaber writes, HaKesar Yorem Hoidoi, he's such a great guy, and so compassionate, and he loves the Jews. Nebuch, they needed to write that nonsense. They were the greatest anti-Semites in the entirety of Europe. That's Golos. You know, we needed to praise them, and they're so benevolent and so compassionate. So anyway, they didn't even let them take a siddur. And the Moshe Paskind, if you remember Musaf Shel Shabbos, and many people remember Musaf Shel Shabbos, almost no one could memorize Shabbos Rosh Chodesh. It happens once in a few years, not very common, but you daven Musaf every Shabbos. So the Moshe Paskind, if you remember Musaf Shel Shabbos, daven Musaf Shabbos. If you're going to get out of jail and before nightfall, then you should daven Musaf Shel Rosh Chodesh, not Atu Yitzarto. And that is a gewaldige Chiddush. Is that comparable to a person at Mezonis, and he ate some grapes, and he drank wine? And he said, Birchas me'en sholish only ala mechya. He didn't mention Peiroiseo, and he didn't mention Priya Gefen. And then he remembers, just a minute, I ate grapes and I drank wine. And he needs to say, Men Sholosh again. Would he say, Ala Mechia, Ala Ores, Vala Mechia, Val Peoseh, Val Priya Gefen? Or you already said Ala Mechia. What do you think? When he says a brocha again, should he say Ala Mechia again? What do you think? No. Rabbi Yosef, my dear friend, you came a long way to be here. So he said, you don't say it again, and you're right. Why would he say it again? He already said Al Mechio. Would the same apply to Musaf Shabbos and then Musaf Rosh Chodesh? Would it? Some say yes. Some say yes. But I don't think so. Why? Explain to me, what is the difference? Why when you say Birchas Men Sholish or say Al Mechio, and you weren't Yaitza? Because you skipped Peiros and you skipped Priya Gefen. You only said Al Mechio. When you say it again, you don't say Al Mechio again. So why, when a Shabbos is Chodesh, and I already said Musaf Shel Shabbos, but I missed Rosh Chodesh, Should I say only Rosh Chodesh, just like El HaMichya, or it's different? Of course it's different. And why is it different? Because El HaMichya is a Birchas HaNehenen. There's a Brocha Rishona and a Brocha Achrona. You can't say the same Brocha twice. That is a Brocha Levatola. So you said El HaMichya, you were Yoitze. So Mezonis is out. You still need to say a Brocha and Peres and an Yayin. But the Madbeya Shel Tfilo, Shabbos Rosh Chodesh, has a Madbeya, and that is the Madbeya Shel Tfilo. And the Madbeya Shel Tfilo is Atu Yitzarta. The Madbeya Shel Tfilo is a combination of Kedushas Hayom, Shabbos and Yom Tov, Shabbos and Chol HaMoed, Shabbos and Rosh Chodesh. That is the Nusach. That is the Madbeya Shel Tfilo. If you skipped Yom Tov, you weren't Yoitze. If you said Al HaMichya, or you skipped Al Priya Gefen, you were Yoitze. You were Yoitze Al HaMichya. You still have another Brocha. And that is the difference. Birkei Yosef disagrees with the Igros Moshe. V'chein ani yomer de'im b'Shabbos v'chol HaMoed. Hispal musaf shel Shabbos levad. V'omer yala v'yovoi ba'avoido. Tzorech lachza v'lespal musaf Shabbos v'chol HaMoed. Not musaf shel chol HaMoed. Lachza v'lespal musaf Shabbos v'chol HaMoed. Kiven deloi zocho sham musaf b'chol HaMoed. ודלוי כמי שכוסף איפך ואין דבוריו מחבורים ואין הפנאי מסכימים מלהערך ושמחתי על המעין יש בצדק. לוי כמי שכוסף איפך, does he mean the Igros Moshe? What do you think? Does he mean the Igros Moshe? Does anybody know who was the Birkei Yosef? Who was the Birkei Yosef? Does anybody know? Was he a Rishon or an Achron? What? Who's talking? Chassidish or Litvische? Yeah. Do you know the Rosh Tevis Chido? Yeah, great. So the Chido can't mean the Igros Moshe because he was 200 years older than the Igros Moshe. I wonder whom he does read. I have no idea. So if anybody finds one of the Gedolim of his era, of his age, or of previous Gedolim, I would very much like to know. Because that means that the Igros Moshe has a predecessor, has somebody earlier that said the same, but I don't know who that was. And the halacha is, like Reb Shlomo Zalman, source number 9, you skip to the Chodesh, you need to say Ato Yitzarto. That is the Madbeya Shel Tefillah. Now I'm going to challenge you to a more difficult question. Who wrote the Sefer Chesed LaAlofim? Does anybody know? Who wrote the Sefer Pele Yoyetz? Does anybody know? Who? Yes. You could judge by the name, probably he was a Sephardi. He also wrote Chesed LaAlofim. Pele Yoyetz is in Musar, Chesed LaAlofim is on Shulchan Aruch. And a Chesed LaAlofim Tov Chofei, he says, if Shabbos Rosh Chodesh, you only said Musaf Shel Shabbos, you skipped Rosh Chodesh, and then you said Musaf Shel Rosh Chodesh without Shabbos, you need to daven a third Shemay Nesra. And even B'di'eved, you weren't Yoytze. Because the Madbeya Shel Tefillah is the combination of Shabbos and Rosh Chodesh together. Shabbos without Rosh Chodesh. Rosh Chodesh without Shabbos, even B'di'eved, you weren't Yoytze, he writes. So the Moshe and the Chesed LaAlofim are the two extremes. The Moshe says, even Lechatchila. No point in saying Shabbos again, you already said Musaf Shel Shabbos. So now what you need to say is Rosh Chodesh without Shabbos. Rebbe Loza Papo writes, even B'di'eved you weren't Yoytze. I wouldn't say daven a third Shemay Nesra. I would say B'di'eved you were Yoytze, but definitely not Lechatchila. And the Madbeya Shel Tefillah, Lechatchila is Ato Yitzarto, which is a combination of Shabbos and Rosh Chodesh together. So Shabbos and Chodesh is two different Kedushas and two different Bechinas. And whenever there's another Kedusha combining with Shabbos, it enhances and enriches what this Shabbos means. Shabbos Kodesh is the most special day we have. And many times I shared my thought. What's the secret of Shtei Shabbosos? Why two? Not one and not three. What is the significance, maybe symbolic, of Shtei Shabbosos? So, I'm going to give you two pshotim before I say what I really think. Or Chaim Kodesh has a technical explanation, an interesting one. And he says, the essence of Shabbos is the seventh day. Sheishes Yemei Amasa, and then comes Shabbos. And that is a Zeicha L'Masa Bereishis. Kodesh Baruch Hu created the world in 6 days, so you need Shabbos number 1 to start the count. If you don't keep Shabbos number 1, then Shabbos number 2 wouldn't be the 7th day. It would be, I don't know, the 100th day, the 1000th day, if you never kept Shabbos before. So Shabbos number 1 is just starting the count. Shabbos number 2 would be day number 7. That's a technical explanation. Why don't I like this pshat? Because then Shabbos number 1 doesn't really have any intrinsic value. It's just a technicality. You need to keep Shabbos number 1. That Shabbos number 2 is the real thing and is the only thing. I think two Shabbos must have some fundamental significance of two Shabbos. And now along the Shubshat. When you do something once, it might just be coincidence. If you coincidentally kept Shabbos, you don't deserve the Geula Shalema. Just might be by chance. There's a machlokes Rebbe and Rab Shimon ben Gamliel. Trei zimna hava chazaka or tlat zimna hava chazaka. And Yevom is Samech Daled in other sources in Shas as well. Rebbe says 3 times. Rab Shimon ben Gamliel says 2 times. Halachic keman, but din and Aphoshes were machmer 2. All the other halachas we need 3. HaKadosh Baruch Hu B'Rov Rachma V'Chasodov says, you know, if you're going to keep 2 Shabboses, out of my love for you, I'm going to pass on like Reb Shimon ben Gamliel. You don't need 3 to have a chazaka, but at least 2. And if you're going to keep 2 Shabboses, it's no longer coincidence. And for you, because you're my precious beloved children, I'm going to pass on like Reb Shimon ben Gamliel, and 2 Shabbosim will be enough. And that is 2 Shabbosos miyad hem negolen. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, I actually should require 3, because we paskin up here like Rebbe. Tlat zimna hava chazaka. But I know it's hard for so many of you, so 2 would be enough. And what is my feeling, Shtei Shabbosos? Shabbos is the Yesod of Emunah. And Shabbos brings us back to 2 monumentals, fundamentals. On one hand, Shabbos is a Zeicha L'Masa Bereishis. Kodesh Baruch Hu created the world in 6 days of Eiyoim-hashchor. Shabbos is also a Zeicha L'Yetzias Mitzrayim. Brias Olam and Yetzias Mitzrayim are the 2 fundamentals. You all remember the very first Ikar of the Yud Gimel Ikrim. Ani mamin be'emunah shalem shaboiri esboch shemayhu boira ve'manhig lekol habruim boira umanhig. He is the creator, and he is the mover. He created the world, and he watches over the world, and he dictates everything that will happen. Mashgocha protas. Shabbos proves both. Shabbos is Zeichel HaMaaseh Bereishis, and that proves that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the Boirei. Zeichel Yetzias Mitzrayim, he is the Manig. And maybe the two Shabbosos are, one, Zeichel Yetzias Mitzrayim, two, Zeichel Abrias Oilam. One to testify that we believe who are Boirei, and the other who are Manig. And that is the symbolism of Shtei Shabbosos. Rosh Chodesh. There are so many symbolic inyanim on Rosh Chodesh. What is Rosh Chodesh about? Rosh Chodesh goes back to Boire, and it goes back to Manig as well. Rosh Chodesh is about Chidush HaBriya. That the Bria wasn't a one-time event and then it just rolls on in inertia. No. Kodesh Baruch Hu Mechadesh Betuvoi B'chol Yoimase Bereishis. The sun is static, exactly as it was when it was created. The moon is in constant, perpetual motion. It either gets bigger or it gets smaller. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu Mechadesh Betuvoi B'chol Yom Tumed Mase Bereishis. And that goes back to Boire. But the Chodesh is also about Manig. And we are Nimshal Lavona. And the Medrash says, why do Umas Oilam have the sun and we have the Lavona? And the Medrash says something so fundamental in our story, the story of Klal Yisrael. The sun shines in all its glory by day. By night, it is nowhere to be found. The sun goes to sleep every night. The moon is always up there in the sky, sometimes more obvious, sometimes less obvious. Sometimes it is clear, sometimes it is hidden by the rays of the sun, but it's always up there. And the moon shines and gives its light by night. And in Divrei Hanovi, night is always a moshel to the Golus. Nafshil Hashem Mishoymerim Laboika. We are waiting for sunrise. We are waiting for Shimshoi Shel Moshiach Sheyala. So the Chodesh is about Boirei and it is also about Manig. And the Chodesh teaches us that we are a constant. We are forever. We are the people of eternity. Mighty empires rise and fall, each of them having its moment of glory under the sun and then sinking into oblivion. We are forever. We have great days, we have days of sorrow, we have days of glory, we have our ups and downs, but we are the people of eternity. We were here before all the others, and we will be here after all of the others. We are the people of Netzach, and Netzach Yisrael lo yishaka. So when Shabbos comes together with Rosh Chodesh, that is a very Shabbos. Rosh Chodesh enriches Shabbos, Shabbos enriches Rosh Chodesh, and this is, Baruch Hashem, what we will experience this Shabbos, which is Shabbos Rosh Chodesh. Yerotzim, we should be Zoicha, that Klal Yisrael, once again, HaKadosh Baruch Hu should be Mechadesh, Chidesh Alavona, Oira Ka'oir Shivas Hayomim, and we should be Zoicha to a Geula Shalema, B'Meheiro V'Yomeinu, Amen.